When you picture this brand, you expect bright lights and bustling drive-thrus. You probably don't picture a 1990s menu board rotting in the Alaskan wilderness, or a futuristic floating restaurant sinking into a riverbank. We are conditioned to see these global franchises as permanent fixtures of our landscape. They are designed to be uniform and indestructible. Yet occasionally, these incredibly rigid corporate structures fail entirely, leaving their familiar architecture abandoned to decay. To understand how strange it is to see one of these locations rotting away, you have to look at how the empire was built. In the 1950s, the company developed the system. It replaced car hops and long waits with a hyper-efficient, standardized assembly line. Because every burger, fry, and shake was produced exactly the same way, the model was incredibly easy to replicate. The franchise duplicated this exact process across thousands of identical locations, quickly making those golden arches a universal symbol of modern convenience. This animated map shows how aggressively expansion played out globally. By the late 1980s, over 10,000 locations were active. With that massive volume of restaurants opening all at once, mathematical probability dictates some were going to fail. Typically, the corporation acts fast to bulldoze or repurpose closed storefronts to protect its pristine, uniform image. But a few rare locations slipped through the cracks. Left to the elements, these forgotten buildings act as fascinating case studies, showing us exactly what it takes to break a corporate machine. Take the Portland, Oregon location built in 1962. Designed by architect Stanley Meston, it was a glass-fronted masterpiece that survived for decades. Locals treated it as a living, breathing museum of the brand's mid-century history. But historical value carries very little weight against corporate modernization. In 2018, the franchise demolished the beloved vintage structure, clearing the lot to build a perfectly ordinary, uniform building with digital kiosks right next door. This reveals a distinct vulnerability. The empire prioritizes a sanitized aesthetic over its own legacy. It will gladly erase local nostalgia and cannibalize its history to maintain an aggressively forward-facing image. This is Adak Island, a harsh Alaskan military outpost. A franchise opened here in 1986, offering a taste of home. It thrived until the Cold War ended. The base emptied, and in 1994, the doors locked permanently. Unlike Portland, Adak Island is incredibly remote. Bringing in the heavy equipment required to bulldoze the site was simply too expensive. So the building sits there today, battered by Alaskan storms, with its 1990s menu prices perfectly preserved behind the counter. This geographical isolation creates a literal freeze frame of corporate failure. It proves that no matter how standardized the supply chain is, the global machine grinds to an absolute halt the moment its local community evaporates. A location doesn't need to be situated on the edge of the Arctic Circle to fail. In downtown Ottawa, a completely different scenario played out. Here, a highly trafficked urban location wasn't killed by economic shifts or isolation. It was surrendered to absolute chaos. For years, this spot was a magnet for late-night crowds, leading to staggering infamy. In 2017 alone, police were called to the establishment over 800 times. Its reputation peaked during a massive dining room brawl in 2013, which went viral when a fighter inexplicably pulled a baby raccoon out of his coat. The franchise tried to regain control. They slashed their 24-hour service, closing at 10 p.m., and hired private security guards. None of it worked. Finally, in early 2023, corporate management permanently closed the doors. Today, that corner storefront sits in an uncanny silence. It serves as a clear demonstration that even the most well-funded, legally protected corporate structures can collapse under the sheer weight of uncontrollable local notoriety. Another major point of failure stems from the brand experimenting with extreme gimmicks in the late 20th century. In the UK, a location nicknamed the Megatron was built entirely inside a replica UFO. It shut down within a few years because the curved walls made basic kitchen operations physically impossible. But the ultimate example of tragic hubris happened in Vancouver during Expo '86. The franchise unveiled the McBarge, a fully functional 187-foot floating restaurant designed to project a vision of cutting-edge optimism to the millions of visitors attending the fair. The problem with designing a building exclusively for a 6-month event is that its entire purpose vanishes the day the fair closes. Instead of being repurposed, the massive vessel was unceremoniously towed out of sight and left to drift in a local inlet. Over the next 3 decades, the vessel severely degraded. The gleaming white hull gave way to rusted metal, peeling paint, and heavily graffitied walls. It essentially became a ghost ship, stranded deep in the local river mud, while the city moved on without it. Its final indignity occurred in March of 2025 when the barge partially capsized. What was once a marvel of modern engineering quietly tipped into the riverbank, transforming into a half-submerged public hazard. When a brand prioritizes ambitious, temporary gimmicks over a sustainable business model, the inevitable fallout is highly visible. Those heavily publicized corporate triumphs eventually become rotting public failures. You may have seen a viral image floating around the internet showing an abandoned, Soviet-style franchise location supposedly left behind after the Chernobyl disaster. It is a completely fake, AI-generated stunt. Yet, that fabrication gets shared constantly because the imagery resonates deeply with us. We have a natural, almost morbid fascination with seeing an invincible, hyper-capitalist machine reduced to rubble. We don't need artificial intelligence to visualize a fallen empire. The real-world case studies, from rotting barges in Vancouver to frozen outposts in the Alaskan tundra, already provide all the evidence we need. They prove no matter how wealthy, uniform, or advanced an empire becomes, it cannot outrun isolation, local chaos, or the relentless march of time.